welcome to my channel if you are here for the first time, and good to see you back if you've been here before. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to make the pattern for a half circle skirt dress. Now, full disclosure, it's not a simple half circle skirt dress. I've gone ahead and added some little extra details. Now, my inspiration for this design is a lady I saw at the airport a few months ago. She had on this very simple half circle skirt dress that made her look so elegant. The skirt aspect of it had a flounce that went from one end to the other, and the bodice was just pretty much basic with the bust and waist star and had short sleeves. So for my design, the only difference is that I'm going to have a 1-inch waistband as well as a cutout at the back. So let me go ahead and interpret the sketch. So it's going to be a half circle skirt with a flounce that goes from one end to the other. There's going to be a 1-inch wide waistband that holds the bodice to the skirt. The front aspect of the bodice is pretty much basic. Bust dart, waist dart, there's a short sleeve that stops about 7 inches down on your arm. Now the back is the interesting part. It's a little cutout that just reveals a little bit of skin. The center back of the bodice is going to be held with buttons, and the center back of the skirt will be held with an invisible zip. Now I think everyone needs to have a half circle skirt in their wardrobe, and with this video you'll be able to create yours. So go ahead and grab all your grabbables, and don't forget to subscribe, turn on your notification, give this video as many likes as you can, and let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. My name is Ijeoma, and welcome to my channel. The materials you will need are your traced no ease darted basic bodice pattern, long ruler, paper scissors, marker pen or pencil, short ruler, gum or masking tape, measuring tape, extra pattern paper, and curved ruler. I'll leave the full list as well as all associated links in the description box below. Separate your front and back pattern, and then starting with your front pattern, separate the top from the bottom at the waistline. You will not need the bottom bit. You can save this for another project. From your top armhole, mark how long you want your shoulder line to be. I used 4 inches, and redraw your neckline to touch the same point at the center front from this point. Measure the length of your front armhole and note down. Then redraw your bust and waist darts by first marking points 1 inch in from the bust point on the bust center dart line and waist center dart line, and then redrawing your darts from these points like so. Then mark 1 inch up from the waistline and roll across. Mark notch marks for putting back together, and indicate your center front so you don't get confused. Then go ahead and separate from the rest of the bodice. Set the bottom aside to be worked on later, and add a 1/2 inch seam allowance round the main bodice except at the center front, and label your pattern. You'll be cutting this on fold. Set this aside. At the back pattern, transfer your shoulder dart to your armhole by drawing a line from your shoulder dart tip to your armhole, slashing through this line, and then closing and sealing your shoulder dart. Redraw your shoulder line and seal the open armhole. Redraw your armhole with your curved ruler, and then measure and note down your back armhole length. Extend the center waist dart line upwards to your across back line, and redraw your dart from this point to the waist like so. Mark your back shoulder length same as the front from your upper armhole, and also mark 1 inch down from the neck point at the center back. Redraw your back neckline with your curved ruler by connecting the shoulder length to the 1 inch point at the center back. Mark 1 inch up from the waistline and rule a line across. Make notch marks and indicate your center back on the 1 inch piece, and then separate it from the bulk of the pattern. Set this aside while we finish up on the main back piece. At the bottom of the center back, mark a point 3 inches up from the bottom and connect this point to the side with your curved ruler. And then go ahead and add a 1/2 inch seam allowance at the bottom, side, armhole, shoulder, and neckline. At the center back, you'll be adding a button allowance and seam allowance in addition to the zipper allowance you should already have if you've used my method of tracing and depending on the size of your button. So I'll be using a 1 inch wide button, so my zipper allowance will be my first button allowance, and then I added a second 1 inch for my second button allowance and a 1/2 inch for seam allowance. Go ahead and label your pattern. You'll be cutting 2 of this. Go into the cutout 1 inch pieces. Close and seal the darts on both front and back pieces and cut off all excess sticking out after you've closed the darts. Remove any excess from the side of the front piece and then mark a 1/2 inch away from the side of the back piece. Glue the side of the front piece to the 1/2 inch space made at the side of the back piece, remembering to make sure you are aligning the corresponding top and bottom. Add a 1/2 inch seam allowance at the top and bottom and label your pattern. You'll be cutting 2 of this on fold at the center front. Set this aside. Now to prepare the skirt. We'll be creating a 1/2 circle skirt with zipper at the back, meaning it will have a total of 3 seam lines, 1 at each side and 1 at the back. So to calculate your radius, add 4 inches to your waist circumference to get your total circumference, and then divide this sum by 2 times 3.14 according to the formula. So let me break down why we need to add 4 inches with this drawing. So we're going to have 3 pieces in total, 2 for the back and 1 for the front. Each piece will have a 1/2 inch seam allowance at the sides, totaling 2 inches. And then the 2 back pieces will each have 1 inch at the center back for zipper allowance. Hence why we're adding an extra 4 inches to your waist measurement. Then at the edge of a fresh pattern piece of paper, first measure down the radius gotten by placing the start of your measuring tape at the tip of the corner and marking the radius gotten from one end of the paper to the other. Connect these points with your curved ruler. This is your waist. I've taken off the excess at the top just so that the waist is clear. Then from the created curve, mark your desired length. I used 30 inches and connect all points. And then add your 1/2 inch seam allowance at the bottom. Fold the pattern into 2 equal parts and separate at the fold line. On each side of the separated line, label center front on one and center back on the other. At the center back, measure and mark your 1 inch zipper allowance. Also mark your 1/2 inch seam allowance at the other side. Please note that these allowances have already been incorporated in the pattern making, and hence you will not need extra pattern paper to measure and mark. At the waist, add extra pattern paper and mark 1/2 inch up from the original waist. Label your pattern. You'll be cutting 2 of this. On the front piece, do not add any seam allowance at the center front, and then indicate your side seam as you did the back, and add your seam allowance at the waist. Label your pattern. You'll be cutting 1 of this on fold. Set this aside. To create the flounce in front, measure the length of where you would want it to be. Now you don't have to be specific, as you can always be creative with the placement. You just need to make sure you have a rough estimate. So I'll be using this length drawn as my rough estimate. Since the center front skirt piece will be cut on fold, I doubled the length measured to give me a total of 44 inches, and then added 5 inches for excess, bringing my grand total to 49 inches. Then using this measurement as your circumference, go ahead and create another half circle pattern in your desired length. I used a length of 5 inches. Label your pattern. You'll be cutting 2 of this on fold on one end. Set this aside when you're done. Now the sleeve is just a simple sleeve. So using your front and back armhole measurements, create your sleeve head, and then measure and mark your desired sleeve length from the top line. I used 7 inches. Measure the circumference of where your sleeve will stop on your arm, remembering to add any necessary ease depending on how tight you want it. Divide the circumference measured by 2, and then mark the divided measurement on each side of the center line. Connect these points to the bicep point with your short ruler. Add a ½ inch seam allowance at the sleeve head and side, and a 1 inch seam allowance at the hem. Label your pattern. You'll be cutting 2 of this. And you're done! Alright then, go ahead and check that you are subscribed and your notification is on, because we will put this together next week. Let me know that you liked this video by giving me as many likes as you can, and I would love to hear from you in the comment section. Until next week, see you later. Bye!